Can you describe your relationship with that family over the years?
So with Ruby and the Frankies specifically, it's just acquaintances. I mostly knew the greater family with the siblings and the in-laws and that whole culture because they all work together and click together like as a whole unit as Mormon family vloggers.
And again, that was in the state of Utah, correct?
Yeah, so when we started to do family vlogging ourselves, we met them at YouTube conventions. And then when we moved down to Southern Utah, several of Ruby's family came down, collaborated with us, and one of them even moved down. And that's when we got to know them a lot better and started going to meet them and see them behind the scenes at private parties and see what they're really like.
Right now, a couple of child abuse charges against Ruby and her business partner, Jody Hildebrandt. What do you make of those charges?
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me. While I wasn't aware of any overt abuse allegations like that are coming out now about Ruby. I think that a lot of people remember going back 4 or 5 years ago that it was Bonnie who was in the middle of a lot of attention and even had to go to YouTube headquarters and try to explain herself because a lot of her YouTube content showed her children having bloody noses and split lips, getting stitches and broken arms and fingers and going to the hospital frequently as though it was a form of clickbait to try and get views to their content. And it created an entire division on YouTube where ultimately they had to split from YouTube Kids to YouTube for Adults. And it affected a lot of content creators and should have stopped this. But apparently what you see on camera is not what you always have going on behind the scenes.
To elaborate on that, what Ruby did we see on camera versus the Ruby that maybe you saw when the camera wasn't rolling?
I think that out in public and socially, unless you see them in a personal situation, like at a party or when they feel like they can let their guard down, what you're seeing on camera is a totally different person and a totally different life. There's an agenda to try and portray themselves as upstanding Mormons and to have that persona, and they feel like it's fulfilling who they are and their purpose in life and everything. And so I think that creates a pressure cooker situation where they're willing to live a double life and hide a lot of generational family secrets. And we see that with Ruby, coming out right when she gets caught with all of this and accused, blaming her kids and throwing them under the bus for the abuse, instead of realizing who the adult parents are in the situation that are supposed to be home all day 24/7 as family vloggers supervising all of this.
Carl, in your mind, where does the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints fall into all of this?
I think that they create a fundamental problem with all of this in the fact that they have a system of looping people back into their own control measures to keep things contained, which is why you don't hear about the tens of thousands of abuse allegations in relation to the Boy Scouts of America, the 500 plus cases that are going on with the church right now, and the 12 new ones just this year. And they don't talk about it because just like Jody Hildebrandt, they're funded and the counseling and the therapists are all paid for and billing the church directly. So when Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke are sitting there filming their videos for their connections company, portraying themselves online as upstanding Mormons and examples to families in the community, their children are tied up in the basement and then they're being paid and funded by the church in their billing cycles.
Have you met or been around Jody Hildebrandt?
I've never met Jody. I've just heard about her from all this case. A similar thing happened to me in my divorce as well. And I know this has happened to others. And so I'm starting to wonder if this is a prototype of something we're going to see more often, where families are broken apart and it's the therapist attaching to one of the members of the family to try and start a business together and a podcast and doing some kind of online venture. The same thing happened to me at the end of my marriage, so it kind of didn't surprise me.
Is that why you've decided to speak out?
I think the end of my marriage all began when our family started associating with Ruby's siblings, and when all of this behind the scenes stuff went on, it really compromised my marriage. And the same pattern that you see playing out in some of these other families happened to me. And I'm not the only one that knew this family and met them and then ended up divorced about a year later under a similar pattern.
Where do you want to see this case play out as somebody who obviously was very familiar with what was going on in terms of what the family dynamic was. And now you see them playing out kind of on a national scale, currently incarcerated. Where do you foresee this going?
I think that people watching these family daily vloggers and people who are portraying themselves as a certain persona should be watchdogged a little bit closer. And the next time someone picks up their camera to shove the camera in their children's face when they just fell down the stairs or crashed on their bicycle and is hurt, they should think about helping the child before getting content and getting views. And I think that this needs to make people think twice. And it also needs to bring awareness, I believe, to the bigger problem of how the Mormon church as a whole funnels these problems in a way so that they stay swept under the rug and that the public doesn't hear about it, because there's no way possible that Ruby Franke's bishop and local church leadership weren't fully aware of what was going on, because that is the culture. You're not even allowed to go to church and participate unless you go do the confessionals and talk through all this. So if what Ruby said was true and this went on for 5 years and spread throughout the family, I find it impossible that the local church leadership wasn't a part of it and didn't help keep it quiet and continue to pay Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke to be representatives.
Again, can you put in the timeline of when you first met Ruby and then when that kind of fizzled away? How long was that or so?
I think from the first time we met at a convention, probably in 2017 or 18, and then fast forward to I blocked everyone on that entire friends group and family around 2019 and was divorced by 2021.
Have you ever had a conversation with Ruby that stuck out to you in any way?
The one conversation that I personally had back and forth with her was very strange, and she was kind of portraying out different beliefs and ideals and trying to give advice about what we should do with our YouTube channel and things like that. And I actually had kind of an awkward disagreement and argument with her at a restaurant over dinner, where I disagreed with her parenting styles and some of the things that she said in the conversation about the church. And I basically defended my reasons for leaving the church and that it wasn't going to hurt my kids.
Have you ever had any conversations with her husband, and where do you think he fits into all of this?
I never really met him. He was always, whenever they were around, he was either never there or just kind of like hanging out in the background, very quiet.
Is there anything we're really missing, the public is missing about this whole situation?
I just think that people need to not have amnesia and remember the bigger picture, that this all relates back with this family and the siblings at a greater level, clear back when there was a lot of problems going on with YouTube, looking at YouTube content creators that were creating content like this. And while everybody goes back through Ruby's YouTube channel and is trying to comb through and find stuff that has been deleted, Ruby was not the only one that has been doing that over the last 4 or 5 years.